Fall is in the front windshield, and summer is starting to dwindle away, and we've got to start looking at some projects to get done in the fall.
Right. And one thing you might want to do is plant a tree. And consequently, trees are best planted in the fall.
But the garden center has these trees in the spring, but why would tree planting in the fall be best?
It allows the tree to establish roots, and then it'll have a nice bloom in the spring.
Now, you don't want to just, as long as the soil can be worked, you can plant a tree. However, you kind of want to keep in mind that if it's gonna freeze hard, if it's 45 degrees today and it's gonna be -3 tomorrow, probably not the best time to put a tree in the ground. You want to at least have a little bit of time for that tree to somewhat get established and get the roots worked out without it immediately going into this horrible hard freeze in most places of the country where it can have that happen.
Right. So one thing you want to keep in mind is that if you are going to purchase a tree to plant, you want to try to plant it within 5 days of your purchase. So if you are like, I'm going to plant this tree Tuesday, but I'm going to buy it on Saturday, that's fine. Ideally, I mean, you would probably just want to buy the tree and plant it the same day, but you do have 5 days. Now, if you can't do that, you can also put it into a large container with some soil until you can plant it.
Now, are we talking about bare root, or are we talking about containers in which the plant's already in the balled trees?
Like if it was a bare root or
mail order, typically.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, you still want to make sure you do that. So you want to make sure either way, you want to make sure you try to plant it within those 5 days. That's going to give it the best success.
Yeah, put that thing in some water as soon as you get home. As soon as you get it from the mail order, if you're going that route, you can add some compost tea to it to kind of give a little jump. But really, in the fall, if you're doing it in the spring, that would be fine. In the fall, you just kind of want to give it some water to get it back hydrated to its normal levels as it would be in the ground. If you're in a container or something like that, you're probably fine as long as you keep the soil moist. And keep that in mind when you're planting a tree for bare root.
Right. So, and just so you know, if there's snow on the ground, it doesn't mean that the ground is necessarily frozen. You need about 5 days or so for your daytime temperature to stay below 32 degrees. I'm sorry, 4 to 6 weeks for your daytime temperature to stay below 32 degrees. So it takes a while for the ground to freeze. That's
people may not think that. They think, oh, it's 32 or it's 28. Now the ground's hard as a rock. It may be like a fractional inch or half, a quarter of an inch or whatever, that top layer. But down below, Earth is designed not to freeze, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the soil.
There's a lot of stuff going on in the soil. So speaking of soil, when you plant your tree, you want to dig a saucer-shaped hole. And this is for the trees that are wrapped in like the
burlap.
Burlap, yep. So that's what you want to do, and so you want to have it deeper in the middle and then more shallow on the sides.
And whenever you plant this tree, two things that people make the biggest mistake about planting trees, whether in the spring or the fall, is one, they dig a hole, probably not big enough that it's not big enough. Two, they plant the tree and then they backfill it with a whole bunch of compost and potting soil and enriched, nutrient-filled soil. And then they stake it down tighter than a radio tower is. And they walk away and go, I've done a good deed for the earth, and they're happy. And it's not, those three things are not good for the tree. A hole not big enough, the wrong kind of soil, and staking it down.
Right. So you did not really necessarily do a good thing for the earth. But yeah, so you want to dig your hole, and you want to make sure your hole is 2 to 3 times as wide and as deep as the root ball.
That if your root ball is 2 foot wide, you're going to dig a pretty good size hole. But it is important for the tree to have that type of soil, that hole available for the roots to start developing and securing the tree to the ground, which is what ultimately happens. And we'll go back and the reasons why you don't want to you want to dig a hole big enough. Secondly, you don't want to backfill it with compost or potting soil mix or your famous whatever kind of nutrient mix you would use for your vegetables, because if you do such, the roots do not go and look for nutrients. They don't spread out and fix the tree or lock the tree in the ground. The roots just stay right there and continue to they don't grow because all the stuff they need is right there.
So we don't want to put Uncle Joey's special soil blend in?
No, you want
to use the native soil.
At the very, very worst, you go 50-50 mix. Very worst. If you've got the soil, put the soil back in the ground that you dug the hole out with, and the tree will do fine. You want to water the tree in, even in the fall time. And secondly, you don't want to stake the tree down tight because the tree...
Well, let's get to that in a second here. So you want to carry the tree by the root ball from the bottom.
As you're transporting it from...
Like you're hugging it, essentially, the root ball.
You're not grabbing it by the
you don't want to grab it by the stalk, the stem.
The trunk.
The trunk.
Yeah.
You want to grab it by the root ball. So that's something that's important. Then once you have your hole dug, as Joey mentioned, make sure you do move the native soil out of the way but close by. Then you want to unwrap it from the burlap sack or whatever that you want to call that, and then you put it into the hole. So, and obviously the deepest part.
And if it's you want to get all the burlap off, if there's a wire mesh or cage around it or fencing around it, get that off too, because you want to make the roots as least restricted as possible whenever you're putting it in the ground.
Right. And so then you want to check the planting depth. You want the root collar to be level with the ground. Mm-hmm. So that seems obvious, but I just want
bigger the tree, it may be a little more challenging. You can take a shovel and kind of do that guesswork to make sure whenever you put a 10-foot tree in the ground that you put in the ground one time and it's correct, and you're not digging it back out or lifting it back out and putting it back in.
Right. And you can do some of this digging, if you feel this is labor intensive or maybe a little bit more than what you want to do in a day. You could go out there Wednesday after work and dig some, and then do that until you're ready to, you have the size that you think it should be, so that you're not having to dig and backfill in the same day. It's okay to kind of split it up. So you put the tree in there. Once you figure out that the root collar is going to be level with the ground, then what you can do is you want to go ahead and make sure.
And before you put it in the ground, you want to walk around the tree and find out what the prettiest side of the tree or the prettiest face is, and put that in the direction which you're going to predominantly. If you're in an urban setting, you're going to put that face facing the road where people are going to look at it, and you put the least appealing side away or behind so you or others can't see.
Well, you can make the least appealing sign face your yard if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up to you. You just make sure you want, however you put that tree in the ground is how it's going to stay.
Right. You want to see what you want, how you want it to be facing before you put it in the ground and start maneuvering it around.
Right. And then the other thing is that just make sure you, as Joey mentioned, remove any packing materials, what have you, so that it's not a problem. And you want to straighten your tree, make sure that it is how you want it to look, and then you can start backfilling.
And then there's times where if you need to trim a little bit, you can trim a little bit. Backfill, you are going to have the soil settle down, meaning it's going to be less than what it was, so you'll have to backfill a little bit. You can put a tree diaper around it. But one thing you do not want to do is go to your local garden center and get umpteen pounds of mulch and mulch 6 feet up the trunk, which is called volcanic mulching. You want a level amount, 2 or 3 inches around 3 foot out from the trunk, level, and not going up the trunk, because that can cause a lot of irreversible damage because that mulch is too far up the trunk, and it can cause roots to develop there, can cause rot to occur. Volcanic, look it up if you're not familiar with it. It's volcanic mulching. A lot of municipalities do this. Big cities do this, and they think it's the greatest thing they ever done to a tree, and it's actually killing the trees year after year.
You do want to mulch around it.
Yes.
And you want to make sure you leave a little divot around between the mulch and the tree trunk. So once you've backfilled, then you just go ahead and you could determine, if you want to mulch it, 2 to 3 inches is plenty of mulch height around it, and again do the little divot around the trunk. And then if you do want to stake it, you certainly can.
But just think, if you go out in the woods, how many gnomes do you see staking saplings in the native woods in the forests?
They do that at night.
Oh, they do that. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's why I haven't seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. How much time are you spending in the woods anyway?
Well, I've never seen a gnome or anything stake a tree in the. My point is,
I have.
Yeah. Okay. My point is, in nature, trees survive on their own, and they have ever since the beginning of time.
Nature.
For whatever reason, we feel that the tree needs to be staked because we need to help support it. Actually, if you overstake and put the ropes too taut, you're actually weakening the tree. You're causing the tree to not rely on itself for support and relying on those straps or those wires or whatever horrible thing you're wrapping around the tree. And the tree will actually be weaker whenever you remove those, if you actually remember to remove those over the course of its lifetime, and actually can shorten the life of the tree.
Right. So, yep. See, and then you also want to remove any tags, labels, whatever from the trunk of the tree.
Save them, put them inside, but remember what it was, because
Yeah.
what was that tree? Have no clue.
Exactly.
And people may think, well, what's the difference? Why do I need to know what kind of tree it is? Because at some point, that tree may have some type of disease or fungal or bacteria or some kind of issue, and you can go, this is the type of tree it is, Mr. Horticultural guy, tree expert guy. What is the best thing? When you reach out for assistance, at least that's more information you can provide for the person, the better diagnostics one can give you.
Yep. And so there's a lot of good information online, but the Arbor Day Foundation is where I got all of this information, and they are very helpful with a lot of tree planting, tree whatever helpful information as well.
And if you want to plant trees, go ahead. Best time to do it 10 years ago, but tomorrow's a good time. And also, if you want to kind of plan ahead, plant something that will produce rather than just leaves or acorns. You got nut trees, berry trees, cherry trees, fruit trees, a lot of different options for a lot of different parts of the country. Well, another option in which you have is whether you're a fisher, woman or a man, hunter, butcher, homesteader, Walton's has everything you need in order to get the job done right, correctly, and safely.
And you could just be a city person
that
likes to make be handy with these products.
Yeah.
So the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show is brought to you today by our sponsors, Walton's Inc. We care about where your food comes from. Canning and preserving your fruits and vegetables is great, but what about the meat?
What about the meat?
At waltonsinc.com, you can get all the equipment, seasoning, and supplies to make sausage jerky and any other meat product your way to your high standards. If you want to make some delicious snack sticks, incredible beef jerky, they have all that great.
Impress your friends while you're barbecuing with the seasonings in which they have available.
Even just yourself in the kitchen.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So they have all sorts of great stuff. And they also have meatgistics.com, which is an informational site to help you find or help you make the best finished product. They have meat grinders, mixers, sausage stuffers, all that good stuff to go from animal to edible. That's waltonsinc.com or meatgistics.com.
Hey there, gardeners. Thanks for checking out this segment of the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. If you like what you've seen, you can search through the channel and find full in-studio videos of the entire show. If you want to go another route, you can search for it on your favorite podcast platform by searching the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener radio show or the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show, and you can download it and take it with you. You can check out all past seasons at our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, under the radio tabs at the top of the page. We thank you for joining us. We hope you've learned and enjoyed the show, the segment, and we'll see you next time.